Welcome to Ask the Sales Professor. I'm Professor Ben. I'm your sales coach, and we are here to talk all things sales, answer all your sales questions, and we're doing it live on a Friday afternoon. How cool is that? So, our topic for today is sales culture. Probably one of the most powerful tools that we have as sales leaders, and something that we're seeking as sales professionals. But before we get into that topic, what do we got to do? Let's do our intro. Man, gotta love that intro. So, sales culture. So you'll see the question over here. Today's question is, how would you describe the ideal sales culture? And why would that be the ideal sales culture for you? So checking out the comments here, see what you guys have. Hey guys. So let's talk a little bit about your sales culture and how to create that powerful tool so that you can get your sales team doing what they need to do every day, inside and out. And guess what? Actually having fun and enjoying what they're doing. And there's a little bit of a secret sauce to doing it, but we're going to break it down to basically 3 steps so we can really dig into this. And this first one, a little bit obvious, but definitely worth talking about because we just don't see it often enough. And that is when it comes to owning your sales culture, that culture has to start from the top down. It's got to start from the top down. That means that leadership has got to own that sales culture. It has to be the most important thing that they think about day in, day out. Everything else comes second. And when you do it that way, it's a whole different feel. So got to start from the top down on that sales culture. So what does that look like? That means if you're looking to create a sales culture of accountability, a sales culture of drive, that means you've got to own that. You've got to be accountable to your team as the sales leader. And when you do this right, when you do this properly, it starts to bleed into everything that happens in your sales meetings that you have every Monday morning, right? It bleeds into the one-on-one meetings that your team is having when you're not even there in front of them, in front of those clients. So you've got to own the top-down component of your sales culture. Let's take a look at this part here. Your sales culture has to be clearly defined, right? This can't be something that, as a sales leader, is in your head or you're pretty sure everyone gets it. It's got to be clearly defined. It has to be something that you live and breathe and eat every day, and everyone knows what you're thinking and they're thinking it too. So how do you define your sales culture? Just like it sounds, it's part of everything that you put out in front of the sales team in your one-on-ones, making sure that they know what's expected of them based on what that sales culture is. And we got a couple of comments here. Vico Dola, hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you. And let us know what your ideal sales culture is. Thanks for jumping in. So think about this. It's coming from the top down, and you own that sales culture, right? So looking back at point number 2, let's get that back up on the screen for you. It's clearly defined. Everybody knows what's expected in the sales culture. Is it accountability? Is it drive? Is it ownership of every single part of what the sales process looks like? Right? It's got to be clearly defined for your team. And once you do that, now you're in a whole different situation because the expectations are known between you and your team. And now you've got to take it to that third step, to that next level. And that is, you've got to make sure that there's daily and very open, transparent accountability. So daily and open, transparent accountability. What does that look like? That means that you're talking about this kind of stuff out loud with your team. It's not a secret. It's not the elephant in the room that someone may not be living up to the expectations of the sales culture. It's a frank conversation that everyone on the team has. And when you live that way with your team, that's when you start getting those expectations met. And your team is on point for what they are expected to do. So think about mediocrity. Who wants a sales culture with mediocrity, right? It doesn't work that way. I'll tell you who might want that are salespeople who want to get away with the bare bones minimum, the least that they can do, and to keep their job and fly under the radar. Does your sales culture accept that? Is that okay? Are there some people on your sales team that live by mediocrity? And some people on your sales team that really want to try hard, but when they see others getting away with less, what does that drive them to do? In some cases, it might drive them to lower their standards. In most cases, it drives them to look elsewhere for a sales culture that they want to be part of, a sales culture that has the same core values that they have. And that's what you want to create as a sales leader. So taking a look at this, starting with the top down, you've got to own your sales culture as the sales leader of the team. Everyone has to be bought into that from the top down. You must clearly define what your sales culture is. What do you expect from the team day in and day out? What will make them feel uncomfortable if they're not accomplishing this? It's got to be clearly defined. And then finally, daily and open accountability for that sales culture. That means every conversation, every one-on-one is focused around what that definition looks like. And everyone knows to expect it. And no matter where you put that bar, no matter how high you raise that bar, your team will drive to get there. They'll want to exceed those expectations. And they'll want to because everyone around them owns it. And that takes away that elephant in the room. So when you're thinking about developing your sales culture, hey, Nicole, good to see you. Thanks for that. Here, I'll put a little shout out to Nicole Rollins. If you haven't checked out her profile, if you're not connected with her on LinkedIn, make sure you get connected. She's awesome. So thanks for chiming in. So when you're pulling your team together and you've defined that sales culture, you own it as the sales leader, and it's daily conversation of what those expectations are, you'll watch your team rise to the top. And that is the key behind that sales culture. So thank you guys for joining us. Some great comments in here. So appreciate you guys chiming in. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Hey, it's Friday afternoon. Thinking of your sales culture. What's your team doing right now? If you're a sales professional, what are you doing right now? Are you looking at the clock, trying to get out as early as possible? Are you going to take that one last call or make that one last call to see if you can try to top the week off at the highest number possible? What does your sales culture ask you to do? What is your sales culture telling you to do? And as sales leaders out there, what kind of sales culture have you created? Friday afternoon is very telling, right? We always like to see what's happening on Friday afternoon. If everyone's hit their number, then hey, maybe they're going home a little bit early. For those that are struggling a little bit, they're making that extra call. They're going that extra mile. And that's what's making them successful. What do your Monday morning sales meetings look like? What's the sales culture in those Monday morning sales meetings? Is everybody accountable for the actions that they committed to the week prior? Do people kind of look around and go, oh, I didn't make those calls like I said I would, but I will this week, only to come back to that sales meeting again with the exact same line? If that's okay in your sales culture, you're going to keep getting that same thing over and over again. If your sales culture demands more from the team, if your sales culture says, hey, look at the behaviors that I'm modeling, I'm leading those expectations. We've clearly defined what those expectations are. There's no gray area. There's no elephant in the room. And finally, we talk about the sales culture. We talk about the expectations day in, day out. So everybody's on the same page. A coworker of mine once said, you either have to, actually, he didn't once say it, he says it all the time. You either have to change the people or you got to change the people. And that starts with that right sales culture. I'm going to put this back on the screen for us one more time for those of you who are just chiming in here. Owning your sales culture starts with from the top down. Clearly define your sales culture. That's part of owning it. And then you've got to have that daily conversation, that open accountability behind what the expectations are as a sales team. And you're going to watch your sales team rise to the occasion and meet and exceed those expectations. You got to set that culture first. You got to set that tone. Friday afternoon. Thank you guys for joining us. let's do that little outro one more time because it's so cool. And I look forward to seeing you live on Ask the Sales Professor. I'm Coach Ben signing out. Have a great weekend. Go make those extra calls.